Let's talk about jewellery. House of Rose has unveiled its new flagship store in Mumbai's Balad estate. Manisha Gupta caught up with Biren Vaidya, who's the managing director of House of Rose, to discuss key trends in the sector. What jewellery sector also expects from the budget 2025. Take a look.
The luxury customer is loyal to themselves and they want everything in every category. So though we started off the House of Rose with jewellery, we realized over a period of time that the customer was inclined to be going into other categories and other brands. So what we do best is be like water, get every international brand that is looking to come to cater to the Indian HNI and bring their products here in India.
Mr. Vaidya, when we talk about jewelry luxury, would you say this as a category has grown over the years? And if yes, would you be able to share a percentage, approx number onto that?
So numbers is something that I really don't get into because India has been a very dynamic market, and with the kind of population we have, whatever statistics that come out are only on very, very marginal slices, and that really doesn't give the whole picture. But the answer is yes, the luxury market has grown. The jewelry market existed right from the time when I started in the 80s, where though 1% of the population was paying tax at that time, 70% of the Indian population had more than 1 tola of gold. Okay, the Indian families. So that really showed how important jewelry was. However, saying that, the luxury category has expanded because today with the exposure to the younger generation through digital, through media, they have got a lot of exposure, education and wealth, and they want to enjoy it. And with the opening of the economy, you're seeing that happen. And from 5 cities, we have grown to more than at least 100 cities that can be called metropolitan cities.
Oh, well, absolutely. So, Mr. Vaidya, from looking at gold and silver and jewelry and diamond as investment, where you're anticipating returns, when you talk about luxury jewelry, this is an area where you look at it as wealth creation and not exactly for returns going forward. Would you say category in that sense also has grown?
Yes, it has, because people have now got an understanding that it's not only the materials that create the wealth, it's also the goodwill of the brand. So for example, if you were to buy a steel watch, that also appreciates in price. So in the same way, when you're buying something precious that's in gold, diamonds, emeralds, and if it comes from a brand of a standing, the aspiration and the value goes up purely not because of the materials and the asset value of that, but also about the value and goodwill of the brand.
Rose, as you've created as a large enough brand of very strong repute and standing in the Indian markets, with budget around the corner, what is your expectation from this budget as a luxury brand, as a growing market, and also with the kind of business that you're in?
So every time one doesn't have to always look at the government for something more. I think they've done an exceptional job on how they've positioned jewelry in luxury with the 3% GST. I think that's fair, and that should be okay with the size of the market that is going. But if luxury watches and luxury other products are heavily taxed, that will create the customer picking it up overseas. So if the luxury customer is willing to enjoy it and buy it locally, why not give him that advantage of picking it up here rather than going overseas and bringing it? I think that's one thing they should consider before they increase the GST on any of the luxury categories, because that is something that one tends to see happening. If they look at it from that perspective, is keep the purchases domestic rather than overseas, it would really, really help, and it would lure the market to grow here. It will lure a lot of international brands to come, and when more brands come, the markets get bigger. It's not only about imports, but it's also about exposure and people buying in India itself.
The Indian market really seems to be growing when it comes to jewelry, coming back to that. And we're looking at more corporates getting into jewelry as a business. There were a lot more IPOs in 2024 as well. And the way the jewelry market is talking to us, they tell us that there are 3,000 new shops opening in next 2 years. The expansions are coming in, etc. How are you looking at the sector overall and its growth?
So for me, jewelry has always been an art form. So one may talk about growth and patterns of scalability in the number of stores, but eventually one must understand, for it to grow in the correct direction, you need to have the right kind of understanding of design for the target segment that you are doing, whether it is mass or class. If it is generic, if it is just put out there to bring numbers, it really doesn't bring the value. If you see the largest brands in the world, even a brand like in silver like Pandora or Swarovski in fashion, they've identified their DNA. So by just opening stores is not the question, but like a child, you have to make the brand create its DNA, and with design, with innovative marketing, with strategy, and then it's easy to grow. But what I see is if things are done in a haste, where I see a lot of the Indian retail brands, especially in jewelry, growing, where they're going just with the herd mentality that if A has opened here, I need to open here. It may bring you business, but on an overall picture, if it's not identified with you as a brand, it is not going to work. So when you were to see a Cartier or a Bulgari or Rose that matter, there is a distinct style of jewelry. So a customer is coming for that. And when you see Pandora or you see any of the international brands, even the fashion jewelry of Chanel, it has its own style. So that is very, very important. You have to have a character, a DNA for the brand. It's not how many you open, but how well you manage it and strategize it.
All right, and while we were hearing that conversation, we had the numbers of Bajaj Finserv as well. The stock mildly in the red right now. In the early part of the day, it was doing well because of Bajaj Finance doing well. This is the holding company of Bajaj Finance. The company has approved an appointment of a CFO. Ramandeep Singh joins in as the CFO. But importantly, the numbers, if you look at them, the net profit has grown by about 10% The revenues also have seen a bit of a growth. So what we'll do is that we'll take net profit has grown by 3.5%. Revenue has grown by 10%, beg your pardon. For Bajaj Finserv, the more important numbers are the ones that come in the presentation and some more internal details. We'll await that, and as we do, we'll wrap up on this edition of Halftime Report. You stay tuned. Business Lunch will take all the action ahead.